or title of the conversation, how to apply for an E2 visa. Imagine someone's invested the capital, they've worked with you, put together the package, including working with the business plan writer. You have everything in. What's the process from there? Do they reach out to the consulate? Do you schedule the consulate interview for them? Could you kind of walk through the steps of, hey, everything's ready, now let's apply and get the interview?
Yeah. So and unfortunately every consulate handles that section differently, which is a super fun way to go about it. But for the most part, so I'll go over what 80% of the consulates do. So we have the whole application put together. We do the DS-160. So in our world, the client fills out the basics. What's your mom's name? Are they in the United States? Things that I don't have any knowledge of. We fill out all of the E2 section, and we review all of their answers with all the documents to make sure that it's the continuity is there, the accuracy is there. We double check passport numbers and expiration dates. We do all of that. Then the client submits that. Then they pay the MRV fee for E2 visas. The MRV fee, which is the government fee, is $205 per person. So if you have a 6-month-old baby, $205. Applicant, $205. Everybody else, each person, $205. So they will log onto the system. We give them go to this link, click that, enter your credit card number, and pay that fee. And then last step is we submit the documents for them in almost every case. Now, if you're listening in or watching in Singapore, Ciudad de Juarez, let's see, where else? Oh, in Madrid, Spain, they still take paper. Don't ask me why. So in that case, we can mail it, or sometimes if the client is there, they prefer to mail. We'll send you the link, print and mail, because it's faster, it's cheaper, whatever, but we can also mail it. We've done both. But in most cases, it's email. So we'll send the email off and say, hey, here we are the attorneys of record for client Steve Smith, and here you go. And so then what happens? Again, every consulate is different. Sometimes we sit back and wait for a few weeks, and then the consulate emails us and goes, hey, tell Mr. Smith that he can get online and schedule his interview. Or sometimes they say, hey, Mr. Smith's interview is on January 17th at 9 a.m. Or sometimes they reach out to the client directly. Or sometimes after you get your DS-160, you can schedule your interview right there. At Paris, you can schedule it. So everybody is a little bit different, but we will kind of
systemize in their manual, because they have a manual of how they process visas, but it would make sense if before the interview at the consulate, everything else was systematized.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be awesome, but it is not always that way. And in some instances, you have to pay the fee in person too. Don't ask me why. But for most parts, you can pay the fee online with a credit card, and you email the application. The client, here's the link, pay the fee, but we will email the application, and then, whenever we hear back from the consulate, oh, here you go, here's the link, click, go in and to the calendar and pick the date that works best for you, or the nearest one, or what have you. And then once they have that interview date, so let's say it is January 17th, we schedule a call with them about 1 week before to go over everything to print out, everything to take, what they usually ask about, what to expect, when to get there, all of those things about 1 week before the interview.
Now you think that would be a basic thing, but I can say from firsthand, a lot of attorneys don't do that. And they just email what to take in, and there's no walkthrough, no interview prep or anything.
Oh, well, okay. Then I guess we do more than others. I did not know that. I assumed that was part of it. We also, that's kind of the biggest part. Certainly the paperwork helps. Having it clear and having it thorough helps, which is our job. Having it very, very clear, as simple as humanly possible, easy to say yes. But that interview is what is the real make or break. Right? So understanding what they will likely ask you, again, they can ask you anything, but there are 5 or 6 standard questions that they kind of ask everybody, right? Why did you choose this business? How many employees? Yeah. How many employees do you have? What are your current revenues? What are your revenues going to be like in 5 years? Describe this business to me. These are very common questions. Now, sometimes people get out of left field questions. I've had some people, this one guy I remember, he was in Norway, and I don't know, 35-year-old guy. He had already had multiple US visas in the past for a variety of things. And he gets up there and they were like, what does your dad do for a living? And he was like, He worked in the oil industry. Well, his dad had worked in Houston, Texas when he was like a child, and he lived on an L1. So he lived in Houston for like, a year or two, more than 20 years past. So every once in a while they will ask kind of bizarre questions like that. And he's like, well, what does my dad do? So sometimes, but for the most
how do you
part,
manage that? Like, it's like, you don't necessarily want to be offering up information, but you also want to answer direct.
That's right. And that's what I always tell everyone. I mean, it's standard legal advice, right? So if they, answer, obviously be honest. That's crucial. Yeah. Be honest, no matter what. Be polite. And most of the time, that's the thing about these interviews. Most of the time, they're very nice. I mean, every once in a while, you'll get somebody that was like, they were kind of short and weird. But for the most part, it's really nice. It's not confrontational. It's not angry. It's just, they're just going to ask you a few questions. They usually smile. They're nice. So you don't need to worry about that. But be polite, be honest, and answer what they're asking. So I tell sometimes I have chatty people like me. I have chatty clients too. And I say, listen, if I were you, I would practice my answer to these 3 questions. They're pretty likely to ask. And, you're excited about your business. You've got all of these things. Their whole world is this application. So if you start mentioning stuff that's outside the application, even though it's totally fine, it's not against any immigration laws or anything, but it throws them off because they're like, oh, wait, this application says this. Now you're saying this other thing. Let's talk a little bit about that other thing. Now you're down the path of, I don't understand what's happening versus the path of, this seems really obvious. Let's just say yes. So that kind of thing, I always tell people, just, short and sweet, to the point, be honest, be polite. Don't be evasive or weird, but don't talk about stuff they're not talking about.